It's time to rank all 31 Pixar movies. What's going on, guys? I'm Chris, and welcome back to another video. Today, I've got my ranking of every single Pixar movie with the newly released Toy Story 5. Before I get into this, hit that like button, comment down below your ranking of these movies, including where Toy Story 5 places, and of course, subscribe and hit that notification bell to help reach my goal of 200,000 subscribers here on the channel. It will mean quite a bit. Now, I have done Pixar rankings in the past, and because of that, I'm not going to spend as much time talking about every single movie, so we're going to move through this thing. I have updated thoughts on plenty of them, and I'll talk about that. With that being said, this is just my personal ranking from 31 to 1. Kickstarting this thing at number 31 is The Good Dinosaur. I find this movie to be extremely forgettable, and if Pixar wasn't attached up front, you wouldn't even know this is a Pixar movie. It doesn't have soul, and it kind of rips off a lot of other popular animated films. I'm looking at you, The Lion King, so this has always been bottom tier Pixar for me. At number 30, I've got Cars 2. I feel like this movie takes everything that you would expect from a Cars movie and strips it of that. You got Tow Mater almost as the main character, spies involved. It gets completely ridiculous and loses me. It's been another one of those Pixar movies for a long time that I rarely ever go back to. At number 29, I have Elio. This came out last summer, and I've sat with this one for a whole year. It's gotta be one of the slowest moving Pixar films. This kind of a complete snooze fest. It hurts because this movie did go through a lot behind the scenes. There were probably 3 or 4 different versions of it. The original trailer was completely different tonally than the final movie we got. And you can tell, when you go back and think about this movie or rewatch it, it's very evident Pixar just wanted to get this thing released and move on. It's throwaway Pixar, in my opinion. At number 28, I've got Turning Red. The early 2020s era for Pixar is very strange to me. This one was on Disney Plus, and that's where I watched it. It's a movie that captures the awkwardness of puberty pretty well, but it is very on the nose. It just gets a little too silly and ridiculous, especially in the third act for my liking, and because of that, it's just been lower tier Pixar always. At number 27, I've got Luca, another one of those movies that went Disney Plus. Don't get me wrong, it's got gorgeous animation. It brings Italy to life, but the movie just never really compelled me all that much outside of the animation style being fresh for Pixar. The characters are whatever. I was frustrated with decisions that a lot of them made that kind of contradicted themselves. By the time the movie was over, I was like, it's kind of a bore. At number 26, I've got Lightyear. This movie has soured on me ever since I first watched it. I've only seen it once, and I'm scared to go back and rewatch it, but having sat with it, revisited scenes, and discussed the film in depth with friends, my score has dropped drastically for this movie. It's a shame. This is supposed to be canonically the movie that Andy watched that made him fall in love with Buzz Lightyear and want that toy. Chris Evans is fine as Buzz Lightyear, but the movie at large, like a lot of these lower tier Pixar movies, is, you guessed it, forgettable. The scale was there. On paper, this could have been great, but it, for some reason, is like a watered-down take on Buzz Lightyear. At number 25, I've got Brave. This is a fine Pixar movie. It isn't the most memorable. Merida is technically an official Disney princess, which is pretty neat. There are elements here that I like. For example, the period piece aspects. There's some cool action moments, but it becomes your typical body swap movie in the end, and because of that, it doesn't have the Pixar flair or the special feeling of those movies. It's one of the entries you're like, oh, that's Pixar? It almost feels more like Walt Disney Animation Studios at times, shockingly. At number 24, I've got Soul. I want to love this movie, guys. I've just never been able to connect with it as much as others. The score is fantastic by Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross, and I do think there are some powerful messages about living your life to the fullest, but it's one of those Pixar movies that wants to be super mature and take itself really seriously, thematically speaking, but then in the middle act, for about 20 or 30 minutes, turns into like a body swap film with a cat getting involved, and it gets too silly for its own good. So I think tonally, this one was a bit all over the place for me, and I do find it to be one of Pixar's most overhyped films, if you want my honest opinion. I've just never been as high on Soul as others. At number 23, I've got Cars 3. This movie tackles a classic trope we've seen where the veteran athlete or musician is on their way out, and so they pass the torch and train the next up-and-comer. That's exactly what Cars 3 is. If you've seen Rocky 3, you've seen Cars 3, so it's really formulaic in that sense. I used to have this over the first Cars. I felt like that was a little disrespectful, so I did a switcheroo here. But that being said, at number 22 is Cars. I know this is probably a hot take. People adore Cars. I've just never been as high on the franchise. This movie's completely enjoyable and watchable. To me, it's just not as emotionally deep or resonant as a lot of other Pixar films. It's entertaining, don't get me wrong. Lightning McQueen has become a cultural icon for a reason. Cars, to me, is just a movie that when I look at the other Pixar films, I pick a lot more over Cars. It's not bad. It's fine. I just think it's beyond overhyped. It's nowhere near the top 10. At number 21, I have the newly released Hoppers from March of this year. Thinking back, this movie was really chaotic. The energy is just all over the place. It can be almost too much at times. Overstimulating would be a word I would use to describe it. But there are some sweet moments there, specifically touching on human and their relationship to nature. There's a granddaughter, grandmother story that's compelling in the first act, so it's got its moments to shine. Do I think some of the humor misses? Absolutely. Is it too high energy for my liking? Probably, but it's not bad, and I think that Pixar needs to continue making original stories. At number 20, I've got Finding Dory, an overhated Pixar sequel. Yes, it doesn't reach the heights of Finding Nemo, but most of these Pixar sequels fail to reach the heights of the original. In fact, most sequels in general fail to reach the heights of the original. I do like how Dory has more of a role here, but at the same time, her being the full-on lead does kind of take away from her character because she does function better as a side character in that comedic role. Nemo's sidelined. You do get Hank the Octopus, who's the MVP, but let's just be real. The third act of this movie almost goes off the rails. When the truck gets involved, it gets bonkers, especially for a Finding Dory movie. At number 19, I've got Toy Story 4. This is my least favorite Toy Story film. It's still a solid, compelling story, but it functions more as Woody's story than a Toy Story, and I've always felt that way since I first saw it. Woody's on this journey of self-discovery post-Andy, realizing there's whole life out there to live outside of Andy, outside of just being a toy to a kid, and so he goes on this journey and has a compelling arc by the end where he stays back with Bo Peep. It has a lot of new fun additions: Duke Kaboom, Ducky and Bunny. The humor's hit or miss. Gabby Gabby's very throwaway for the villain and not very memorable. I do think it sidelines Buzz and Jessie too much for my liking, which is why it's not as much of a Toy Story movie, but as a Woody epilogue, it does work. At number 18, I've got Incredibles 2. People call this a disappointment. I disagree. No sequel to The Incredibles was ever going to match the original. Going in with that expectation is almost insane. It is still a very well put together sequel. Elastigirl is the lead here. She's in the spotlight. What holds this movie back is the villain gimmick with Screenslaver. It can be a bit much and repetitive within the movie. You also don't get a lot of the Incredibles family dynamic, especially in action. That's lacking heavily here, but the animation's increased. You get some action-packed moments, and I really do think Jack's an absolute hoot in this movie. His inclusion in the story is hilarious and makes for some really fun moments. So I'm excited to see what they cook up in the third Incredibles, even though Brad Bird's not directing, which is a bummer. At number 17, I've got Monsters University, one of, if not the most overhated Pixar films. It's a prequel. We get to see Mike and Sully in the Scare Games in their fraternity Uzma Kappa. That is what I want. It adds so much depth to their backstory. It's not a conventional sequel. It's actually a prequel, which is rare for Pixar to do. And overall, I think this is just a delightful movie. The third act might be the weakest. It doesn't stick the landing as much as I would hope, but the journey these two go on, again, adds so much depth to them that when you go back and watch the original film, you're even more bought in to their duo, and you understand the ins and outs of their relationship and why they are the way they are. You even get Randall in here, so it's satisfying as a Monsters, Inc. fan, and I think this one is thrown out and disregarded way, way too much. At number 16, I've got Elemental. This is a movie that I saw in theaters back in 2023, wasn't too high on, thought it was fine, rewatched it, and maybe my heart's just softened over the past 3 years, but I really ended up enjoying this. It's delightful. Element City being brought to life truly is a feat of animation, and I feel like Wade and Ember's relationship is just so sweet, seeing it develop over the film. But I'll tell you what, the real emotional anchor of this film is actually Ember's relationship with her dad. This film has a very powerful message about accepting those around you with different beliefs, opening your mind, having empathy, and just being more accepting of others. That's how we advance as society, is we talk to people with differing viewpoints, we learn from them, and we grow together. So it's got a very powerful story. I think it's socially relevant today, and the animation style is beyond gorgeous. It's also kind of like a rom-com at times, so it really clicked for me. I was moved this time around, and I had to move it up in my ranking to properly show that. Bringing us into the top 15 is the newly released Toy Story 5. I think this is a step up from Toy Story 4, very relevant with its main message about toys versus technology, but how at the end of the day, no matter how many technological advancements there are in society, you can't beat the human connection that is genuine friendship. Jessie is basically the lead of this story. It's no longer a Woody story, it's a Jessie story. You get to explore more of the backstory on her. With Emily, there's a classic Pixar moment that will bring you to tears, and it's a fun adventure. It's wild, lily pads an interesting enough antagonistic presence, and overall, I think this is a very strong entry in the franchise, and I am honestly ready to see what they could cook up with Toy Story 6. At number 14, I've got A Bug's Life, the second ever Pixar film, another one that goes under the radar nowadays. Yes, yes, at its core, this movie is just a take on Seven Samurai or The Magnificent Seven, but that's a story trope that is a tale as old as time. It's been done in Star Wars television shows, in endless movie franchises or TV shows, because it is timeless. Like I said, you got Hopper, who's the villain, and basically Flick, who is going to try and find warriors to help protect the ants. You get a lot of fun camaraderie between this crew of bugs and this traveling circus. Hilarity ensues. The stakes are high, but it's lovable. There's a charming, endearing element to the early days of Pixar. I feel like this is the forgotten one from their early days as a studio. It deserves a lot more love, and I'm surprised we never got a sequel. At number 13 is Inside Out 2, the follow-up to the original Inside Out that made tons of money at the box office. What I appreciate about this film is the way that it develops and matures with its original audience who saw this film back in 2015, right? If you were a kid watching that film, you watch this one 10 years later, you've experienced a whole new decade of life. You've developed new emotions, you've matured, and that's exactly what the movie does. Riley's older now, so a new set of emotions are introduced into her life with anxiety, embarrassment, and so we're maturing with the audience, but the story itself is more mature. It dives into like beliefs, true friendship, going through puberty. Riley has a full-on panic attack at one point, so it tackles heavier, mature themes, and I just appreciate Pixar going there with it. Inside Out is by far one of Pixar's most original concepts. We'll talk about the first film momentarily, and so I think they've really set themselves up for success to do a trilogy down the line, where the third film is Riley near the end of high school going off to college. They could really touch on that and introduce a whole new set of emotions to cap off the trilogy. But Inside Out 2, very, very strong follow-up to that original film. Now at number 12, I've got Onward. This is an underrated gem from Pixar, released right before the pandemic in March of 2020, so it was kind of doomed from the jump without ever even knowing it. But I'm a sucker for a good brotherhood story, and that's what you've got at its core with Ian and Barley. They're on this adventure, this mythical quest. It's right up my alley. The movie has one of those Pixar moments that makes me tear up every time in the end when Ian sort of realizes Barley is my older brother and he's kind of been my father figure all along. So it's really sweet. I think this one was underseen because of when it released. I hope that people out there continue to watch this movie and support it because it is maybe Pixar's most underrated movie straight up. At number 11 is the underdog story of the century, Walle. If you followed the channel for any time or seen any of my Pixar rankings, I used to really hate Walle. Growing up, I never could get into it. It was a movie that I was just like, not for me. It's boring. I just don't care. Well, I finally rewatched it a couple days ago, and I gotta say, this has climbed my ranking significantly. I was wrong. I have had my Walle awakening, and I'm damn proud to say it. I was so moved during this viewing. It's a simple story of a robot who just seeks for a friend on Earth. Eve comes into his life. You get a textbook romance and a relationship between those two as this budding romance develops. And overall, I was just so enamored with this world this go around. I've always understood the powerful message in the film about how we have to take care of our planet and also the dangers of overconsumption and consumerism in society. But for whatever reason, this go around, it hit me the hardest. I just really dug the idea of humans and robots coming together in the end to establish a future society that's sustainable for generations to come. So it's a powerful one. And the song Put On Your Sunday Clothes has been in my rotation on my playlist for the last week or so. But I'm just so happy to report that I'm finally a fan of Walle. Because it's not like I watched the movie wanting to hate it growing up. It just never worked for me. And then finally, it clicked. Let me know in the comments down below, what's a movie that you watched a few times, never liked, and then it finally clicked for you one day? Because for me, that's Walle. But now we're getting into the top 10, so comment down below #Pixar to let me know you've been watching the whole way through. At number 10 for me is going to be Coco. I made a video recently talking about the saddest Pixar moments. Coco arguably has that. At the very end of the film, when Miguel sings "Remember Me" to Mama Coco, how could you not bawl your eyes out? It's such a sweet moment. I would say Coco is probably the best representation of any culture in Pixar. The way they bring Dia de los Muertos to life, unreal. The animation is picture perfect, truly some of the most groundbreaking, visually stunning animation that we see in a Pixar film, and it's just a lovely film. The music, the animation, the characters, the world that's brought to life, how could you not love Coco? At number 9, I've got Inside Out. I stand on this. This is probably Pixar's best original concept. The emotions inside of every human, what if they had emotions? What does the world inside of someone's head look like? The way they're able to explore the human brain and emotions blows my mind, truly. Like with many of these movies, there's a classic Pixar moment that pulls on the heartstrings with Bing Bong's sacrifice. Take her to the moon for me, okay? Whew, don't talk to me, all right? But I just rewatched it the other day, and it still holds up all these years later as just a truly delightful Pixar film. At number 8 on my list is going to be Toy Story 2. I think this is an underappreciated Toy Story sequel. This movie elevates everything we love about the first. You get Jessie and Bullseye, you expand the world with Al's toy barn, the apartment, the airport, and Woody has to sort of learn to appreciate a good thing. He's bought into this idea of being sold off to this museum as a part of this collection, but in reality, he'd be leaving Andy and his friendship, so it's a movie about valuing what you truly love in life, and it has a lot to just say about knowing what you value and not taking things for granted in your everyday life. It's an underappreciated one from Pixar. I know people might have it lower. I adore Toy Story 2. At number 7 is Up. The married life montage speaks for itself. It is the saddest moment in Pixar, truly devastating, and without dialogue, just Michael Giacchino's score, it shows Carl and Ellie's relationship from beginning to end. Then you get a movie that's got a beautiful tale of how adventure is out there. No matter how old you are in life, no matter where you're at in life, it's never too late to find that spark again and experience true adventure. Live your life to the fullest, and Up is a perfect reminder of that. At number 6, I have the OG Toy Story, the one that started it all. I never get sick of this movie. It's like an hour 20. It flies by. Very timeless, classic tale of Woody who becomes jealous of Buzz. The two of them go on this adventure and become best friends by the end of the film. To infinity and beyond. Sid's an iconic villain. Pizza Planet. I could just keep listing off things. You guys know Toy Story deserves the respect of top 6. At number 5, though, is going to be Finding Nemo. This is a movie I watched ad nauseum as a kid. I had a Nemo piñata at my birthday party at one point in time, and in school, if we ever got to watch a movie in class, it was 9 out of 10 times Finding Nemo. So I've seen it maybe more than any other movie in my life. At a certain point a few years back, I was like, maybe I'm burnt out on Finding Nemo, so I didn't have it as high because I'd seen it too much. What a silly thing to say. This is one of Pixar's strongest films from an emotional standpoint. The older I get, the more I appreciate it. I imagine one day when I have kids, this could even be my favorite Pixar film because I'll have a completely new viewing experience with it. But it's really just an inspirational tale of how far a father in Marlin will go to rescue his son Nemo. He gets entangled with Dory along the way, who actually ends up providing some valuable life lessons. Just keep swimming being the biggest, no matter how tough life gets. You got to face these obstacles head on and overcome adversity. It's part of life. You got to face your fears, and bad things are going to happen, but it's about learning to adapt to those and moving on. Honestly, Finding Nemo is a thing of beauty from an animation standpoint, but also storytelling. It resonates hard, and like I said, the older I get, the more and more I learn to appreciate this. At number 4 is The Incredibles. This movie is and always has been phenomenal. It's Pixar's original superhero story with a family basically mirroring the Fantastic Four in a sense. It's action-packed, cleverly written. There's this sleek style, sort of like a futuristic comic book feel to it. Syndrome as the villain is so understood. You see him idolizing Mr. Incredible, and then he turns on him and ultimately wants to destroy him. And the older I get and more I think on it and rewatch it, there really are some dark moments and mature themes that I don't know if I caught when I was like 5 or 6 years old watching this back in the day. So it is a movie that's very adult, even though it is for the family and captures that. It's like a perfect family movie with something for everyone, but it is an adult movie as well. Genuinely, this is one of the best crafted family films I've ever seen, where everyone can watch it, take something different away from it, and enjoy it. At number 3, I've got Monsters, Inc. I get giddy whenever I hear the opening music for this film. It just sends chills down my spine. But I think the best Pixar duo is Mike and Sully. Their friendship, unmatched. And they're at the center of this film. You throw in Boo, who adds to the antics they get into. You fall in love with the film. Randall is an iconic Pixar villain as a concept. Screams of humans powering this entire city, but then you find out laughs are more powerful. It's just genius. I've always had a big soft spot for Monsters, Inc. I think most people probably have it in their top 5 or top 10, I'd say. At least top 10, right? You'd hope. But I quote this one frequently. Mike Wazowski's the man. It's hilarious, heartfelt, one of Pixar's greatest films, I would say. At number 2, my runner-up is going to be Toy Story 3. I've talked about this movie a ton lately. It's a movie that resonates with me. I've struggled with change my whole life and having to accept that. This movie serves as a reminder that it's a very necessary part of life, but you have to face it head on, and at the end of the day, it's all going to be okay. The final moments crush my soul. I cry every time. It's beautiful. Lotso is not only the best Toy Story villain, but the best Pixar villain. So long, partner. But at number 1, I've got Ratatouille. You knew it was coming. Anyone can cook. This movie's for dreamers. It's a reminder to go chase your dreams, live your life to the fullest. Do what you must to be happy in life and never back down no matter how scary or challenging things might be. Remy and Linguini have this dynamic that shouldn't work but does. Remy wants to be a chef, but he can only do so by operating under the guise of Linguini. And so as Linguini works his way up, Remy does as well. You got Chef Skinner in here as the villain, and then even Anton Ego, who's like this critic whose heart has been hardened takes a bite of this food at the end of the film, and he's transported to his childhood and nostalgia wins out. It's very powerful. Like, this movie fires on all cylinders for me. Saw it in theaters at a young age, and it's always had my heart. I believe it is Pixar's maybe most magical film in terms of the spirit, the pure soul of Ratatouille. I mean, I can't help but feel just moved when I watch it. I get chills just talking about it right now. If you're feeling down, throw on Ratatouille, and it will move your soul. You will feel it in your soul. That's just my ranking of all 31 Pixar movies. Let me know yours down below. Hit that like button, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and be on the lookout for more videos coming very soon. But thank you guys, as always, for watching, and until next time, I'll see you guys later.